Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. What's good? What's good? What's good? This is your boy, Tone DeShields II from Chalk It Up Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge it to the game. Super grateful to be here with you guys. Can't even say it enough how grateful I am, how good it feels to be alive for another day, man. I woke up with tremendous gratitude. I woke up feeling healthy. I woke up feeling in my right mind, which is a blessing, right? You know, so many people going through so many different issues, be it physical, be it mental, be it spiritual, be it emotional, be it financial. So many people going through their own set of issues. And trust me, I see you, and best believe I feel you. So I'm grateful to just be here, right? Sometimes we got to just stop and smell the roses. It's a beautiful Saturday afternoon, depending where you are. For me, it's still technically morning, 11:44 a.m. Some of you guys, it might be 12:44 p.m. For some of you other guys, it might be 10:44 a.m., 9:44 a.m. Wherever you are in the world, just know I see you and I appreciate you. And just know you're not alone because I feel what you're going through. Trust me, we've all had our ups, our downs, our trials and tribulations, but God damn it, we made it to Saturday, June 8th. We got our wits about us. We got our sanity about us as far as we can take it. But I'm grateful to be here with you guys. I can't take that for granted. Once again, you guys are locked in on Chalk It Up Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge it to the game. I'm your humble and gracious host, Tone DeShields II. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys remain engaged in the content. Continue to hit that subscribe button. If you're new, man, oh man, that means a lot to me as well. It goes a long way. The like button is currency. The subscriptions, that's currency. The comments, the engagement, all of you guys on Twitter holding it down on X, right? I really appreciate you guys as well. All the retweets, all the likes, all the engagement. Again, it's currency. It's the lifeblood of this content space. Know your power, people. Exercise your right. Make sure you guys put that, what do you say? That energy into the atmosphere. Make sure you guys are on the right side of history. And I appreciate you guys, man. Can't take for granted. Now, I was supposed to go live yesterday, had some things come up. You guys know how that things goes, right? Although this content thing is my bread and butter, had to take care of some other business, had to take care of some other things. And best believe I'm always going to make sure I take care of you guys. And you guys asked, and best believe I am going to deliver. So the Philadelphia Eagles, you know, mandatory minicamp just ended. OTAs just ended. And man, oh man, we got a lot to discuss because so many people have their own feelings and thoughts about the Philadelphia Eagles roster and who's going to make it, who's not going to make it, who's in the lead for the first team. Who that's funny. You know what's so funny about Loki, right? Loki's about to steal my attention one last time. Give me 1 second. So, like I said, OTAs ended, mandatory minicamp ended. Now the players get to go on about their business, continue to take care of their bodies in their own personal off-season programs. And then we're going to have training camp and then preseason. And next thing you know, we're going to be at the regular season, week 1. So again, you know, so many things have to happen before we get to that point. The Philadelphia Eagles have to continue to evaluate their young players, their new players, even their veterans, right? Coaches have to continue to get these guys prepared, ready for the entire season. And before week 1 comes, cut down days. And that's never a good day in the NFL because most people will never realize their NFL dreams to the highest level. Some players are kind of on their last leg, their last ditch effort to make the league. You know, if you're a young player, maybe you still have a shot, right? If you're an OG player, maybe you're close to 30, you're upper 30s or mid 30s, you're just trying to get a paycheck, right? Maybe you're just trying to get on the practice squad. Just the practice squad check. Practice squad guys make $12,000 a week. That's good money. I don't care. That's why I give so much credit to NFL players, no matter on what level you playing. If you're a practice squad player, if you're a third stringer, second stringer, first stringer, Those guys make good money just to be on the practice squad. They make good money just to be on the sidelines, you know, with their sunflower seeds, holding Gatorade. $12,000 a week. That's good change. That's good money. So I give a lot of credit to these guys. That's why making these rosters is so vital for these players, because that's rent money. That's your mortgage money. That's utilities. That's child support for some of y'all. You dig what I'm saying? What else could it be? It could be student loans. It could be medical bills for your baby, for your mother, for your wife. This is an important time that we're approaching, not just for the Philadelphia Eagles, but for the NFL. So many players will lose out on so much money, and they've dedicated so much of themselves to this craft. They've dedicated so much of their lives, their bodies, their minds, their time. This is all they know. For some guys, this is not the backup plan. This is the plan. For some of these guys, there is no plan B. There is no plan B for some of these guys. This is it. Some guys have a hard time transitioning from the NFL. Some guys have a hard time transitioning away from football, period. Because this is the pinnacle of the game. This is the pinnacle of the sport. Now we have, summer spring leagues like the UFL, which is the XFL and USFL combined. There's the Canadian Football League, I believe, is still in full effect, but that's pretty much it. The college players are able to make money now. So now college players are coming into the NFL with their own bag if they spent their money wisely. So there's definitely avenues out there for these football players, college level, pro level, to make some kind of money, right? But again, it's never good to be cut from an NFL team. Some guys get other opportunities elsewhere on other practice squads, on other teams. It could be a blessing in disguise. You never know. But that's why you got to give so much credit to these 7th rounders, 6th rounders, 5th rounders, guys who were undrafted, right? This is how they do things. This is it. So I want to get into my way too early Philadelphia Eagles 53-man roster prediction. We talked about this for many, many weeks. And I have a dog that can't seem to stay out the way. So we talked about this for many weeks. I said I would give you guys my 53-man roster prediction, my way too early 53-man roster prediction. We're going to do this again, especially as we get deeper into training camp and preseason. We're going to do this again. But again, I want to make it clear that this is my way too early prediction. This can change. This likely will change. So I don't want to waste your time. I know why you came here. Let's get right into it, right? So this is how I did it. I started at the quarterback position, and I went running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, D-backs, special teams. I put them all in their separate categories, and you're going to see as we go along, okay? But before we do that, I want to get some shout outs out the way. First of all, we got 47 people tuned in on a Saturday afternoon. I appreciate you guys. I know this is a little impromptu, but I definitely wanted to make sure I took care of you guys, and I was a man of my word. I wanted to make sure before this weekend was over, we did our 53-man roster prediction. We got 32 people on YouTube, 19 people on X holding it down. Shout out to S Blunt, Fitness Warrior, Bold Brew, KGK, Go Eagles on X, All Eagles Fly. Thank you guys so much for locking in. Please make sure you hit that like button before we get started. That like button is everything. Please make sure you guys stay engaged. Continue to hit the like button. Continue to share the content. Make sure you're subscribed if you're new to the show. I'm grateful for any newcomers. This is a family we're building here. La Familia. This is the Mafia. You know what I mean? Blood in, blood out. So let's have some fun. Let's do it. All right. Let's not bury the lead here. Here we go. So, starting out with the quarterbacks. Here, I think that goes without saying. At quarterback, we have Jalen Hurts, Kenny Pickett, and Tanner McKee. I think that's obvious. I don't think we need to delve into that too much. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is the franchise quarterback. Kenny Pickett, former first-round pick, he's likely to back up because he has the NFL experience. On top of that, you got Tanner McKee, who I think is starting to come, who's starting to develop, starting to become more confident. But I don't know if he's good enough to be the number 2 yet. I think that number 2 spot likely will be Kenny Pickett. That's just my humble opinion. But again, we don't have to spend too much time on the quarterbacks. That pretty much goes without saying, right? Transitioning. Let's continue to go down the list. So running back. At running back, I have Saquon Barkley, Kenny Gainwell, and Will Shipley. Now, to add context to this, right? As a matter of fact, to add context, in 2023, going into the season, the Philadelphia Eagles took 3 quarterbacks going into the season, right? Just keep in mind, right, as we go through position group by position group, I'm going to tell you how many guys the Philadelphia Eagles took into the season in 2023, and I use that kind of as a gauge or a barometer to kind of filter out how they would approach going into this upcoming season. Now it's a new DC, a new OC, new defensive assignments and scheme, and probably personnel choices and usage, and you got a new OC that's probably going to use wide receivers and tight ends very differently. I think Kellen Moore is going to use a lot more wide receivers than the previous OCs did. That's just my mindset here. But as of right now, and we're going to stay focused on the players on the roster. I'm not going to entertain anybody that's not on this roster yet. I'm not entertaining anybody on this roster. We're going to stay focused on. I'm not entertaining anybody that's not on this roster. We're going to focus on who's on the roster, and we're going to cut down from there. I don't want to get distracted. So last season, the Philadelphia Eagles took 3 quarterbacks into the season, and took 4 running backs into the season. I think that changes. I think the Philadelphia Eagles this go around will bring 3 running backs into the season instead of 4. That's what I think. Moving on. And there's still a chance that Will Shipley can challenge Kenny Gainwell, but Kenny Gainwell obviously has the experience on his side. We'll see how that goes. Now, moving on to wide receiver. Wide receiver, this is where it gets interesting here, right? Now, in 2022, the Philadelphia Eagles brought in 5 wide receivers into the regular season. They brought in 5. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, Brent Covey, Olamide Zaccheaus. They brought in 5. I think this go-around, they're bringing in 6. Once we get to the end of my 53-man roster prediction, it's going to be 7. Because I have Brent Covey in the special teams category. But I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to bring in 6 wide receivers, make it 7 if you include Brent Covey, because I do have him on this list, to bury the lead, spoiler alert. So I think this go around the Philadelphia Eagles will bring in 7 wide receivers total, 6 that are likely going to play. I think Brent Covey is going to be the punt returner. And here's why I say this, right? Although I am a fan of Ainias Smith and what he could potentially be for the Philadelphia Eagles, I believe that punt return position is built on trust more than anything. And I think the Philadelphia Eagles trust Brent Covey with those punt return duties right now. He would have to really fall off a cliff for him to lose that responsibility. Ainias Smith or anybody else would have to really shock them in order for them to take that spot from Brent Covey. But I think the Eagles will bring in 6 wide receivers: A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Paris Campbell, Ainias Smith, Johnny Wilson, John Ross, plus Brent Covey, which makes it 7. That's my perspective. You're going to see Brent Covey's name once we get to the special teams category. Obviously, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, that goes without saying. I think the Philadelphia Eagles under Kellen Moore, they're going to have more wide receivers on the roster. I think they're going to have more wide receivers on the roster this go around. I think Kellen Moore is going to have more wide receivers on the field. Kellen Moore loves to use a lot of 4 wide receiver packages and on the football field. And I just think John Ross's speed, Paris Campbell's speed as well, just between those guys, I think they're going to find a way to get both of those guys on the roster. Or I could be wrong. Again, this is something that can potentially change. This is just a way too early prediction. Last season, the Philadelphia Eagles came into the season with 5 wide receivers. I think they bring in, to be technical, 7. To be technical, I think they bring in 7. I could be way off, though. But obviously, you see 6 here. Add Britton Covey because he's going to be on special teams. Moving on. By the way, we got to keep in mind here and ask ourselves, whoever doesn't make the roster, right? Do you believe the Philadelphia Eagles are comfortable with that player being subject to the practice squad and potentially being picked up by another organization? That's something you have to consider, right? Not only are players making this roster because they're good, they're going to make this roster because the Philadelphia Eagles can't see or won't allow another team to poach them. Remember, they kept Jordan Mailata on the roster somehow, some way, be it if it was an injury IR and the man wasn't even healthy. I mean, the man wasn't even hurt. They found a way to keep Jordan Mailata hidden on that roster so they can continue to develop him. You notice Jordan Mailata never saw a practice squad, never, because they felt like if he got to the practice squad, they would lose him. So I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to always think in that mindset. They're going to have guys on this roster because they would much rather keep guys on the roster that they still feel like they're developing than put those guys on a practice squad and then put a guy that maybe they know what they are. They'll take a chance on a guy that's a veteran and let him go to the practice squad. They'll take a chance on that rather than a young guy. And I just think John Ross's speed is something the Philadelphia Eagles are going to fall in love with, unless they feel like they can get that from Paris Campbell. Again, this is a way too early prediction, so I don't need you guys going crazy and trying to take my head off. It's a way too early prediction. Moving on to the tight ends. Last season, the Philadelphia Eagles brought in 4 tight ends to the active roster. I think this go around, they bring in 3. I think those 3 will be Dallas Goedert, CJ Uzomah, and Albert O. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are really, really high on Albert O. I think they bring in CJ Uzomah because he's a veteran. He's somebody you can trust back there. He also can block as well. Albert O, he's a physical freak as well. I just think the Philadelphia Eagles want to keep it at 3 tight ends, whereas though last year they brought in 4. And remind you, again, last year they brought in 4 running backs. Last year they brought in 4 tight ends. I'm trying to make space for extra offensive linemen, extra DBs as well, because I think the Philadelphia Eagles have some tough decisions to make at offensive line. I think they have some tough decisions to make at DB. So, yeah, we don't have to spend too much time on the tight end. Just know that I think the Eagles love Albert O's measurables. They love his physical traits. I think CJ Uzomah is the veteran guy that you can trust. That's going to be the adult in the room, along with Dallas Goedert, who's your number 1 tight end. All right, let's get to the offensive line. Now, to add context, to the offensive line, in 2023, the Philadelphia Eagles came into the season with 9 offensive linemen. 9 offensive linemen. Fitness Warrior says, I didn't even hear anything about Uzomah. Here's the thing. Whether you hear something about a guy or not, sometimes it's a good thing you don't hear somebody's name. Sometimes it's a good thing. That means they're boring. They're doing exactly what their job is. Last year, the Philadelphia Eagles brought in 9 offensive linemen. I think they bring in 10. I think they bring in 10. Here's why. Your starters are Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, and I have Tyler Steen ultimately winning that right guard spot. So that's your starting 5, right? Mailata, Lane, Landon, Jurgens, Steen. Once you get to that back 5, because I think they bring in 10 offensive linemen this year, not 9. I think they bring in 10. Remember, they drafted 2. So in my humble opinion, I think they make the roster automatically. You drafted those guys. You don't want those guys to make it to the practice squad. So that makes it 7 guys now. You signed Becton. That's 8 guys. You signed Matt Hennessy. That's 9. You got Brett Toth on this roster who they trust. That's 10. Oh, wait, no, I take that back. I got a miscalculation here. So, yeah, Mailata, Johnson, Dickerson, Jurgens, Steen, right? I think they bring in Mekhi Becton, Matt Hennessy, Brett Toth, Trevor Keegan, and Fred Johnson. Here's why I say Fred Johnson. So you think Dylan McMahon makes the roster over Toth? Here's the thing. I thought I had Dylan McMahon on here. I guess I overlooked it. I thought I had Dylan McMahon on this roster. That's what I thought. Yeah, let me fix that. I thought I had him on here. I could have swore I did that. Let me fix this. Sorry, you guys. Let me fix that. Because they drafted him. I think he makes the roster for that at all. Give me 1 second. All right. Fixed it. Sorry about the typo. Anyway, so I think the Philadelphia Eagles bring in 10 offensive linemen. Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, right? Those are starting 5 on the offensive line. Mekhi Becton, he's a swing tackle and he's going to be a right guard for them as well. I think they're going to have Mekhi Becton live on the right side. I think Mekhi Becton is going to be their backup right tackle and potentially backup right guard. I think they bring in Matt Hennessy because he could be a swing guard and he could play that center position if need be. I think you bring in Dylan McMahon, your pure center, as a backup. I think you bring in Trevor Keegan as another guy that can be a swing guard, but most likely he'll be your backup right guard. And then you have Fred Johnson, who's going to be your backup left tackle. So I just believe the Philadelphia Eagles, they value their offensive line so much. They're going to need guys that can do more than one thing. See, there's going to be a pecking order, right? There's going to be a pecking order. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to probably go to if whoever gets hurt in the offensive line, right? If Lane Johnson or Jordan Mailata or Tyler Steen gets hurt, I think Mekhi Becton is first man up. If they lose another offensive lineman, depending if it's a guard or not, then I think potentially either Trevor Keegan or Matt Hennessy is next up. I think Dylan McMahon is at the bottom of this pecking order. If I had to give you the pecking order in terms of the backups, I would say Mekhi Becton, then Matt Hennessy, Trevor Keegan, Fred Johnson, then Dylan McMahon. So if you're just joining the live stream, I'm going to do a quick recap of the offense. So here's my way too early 53-man roster prediction for the Philadelphia Eagles. At quarterback, I have Jalen Hurts, Kenny Pickett, and Tanner McKee. At running back, I have Saquon Barkley, Kenny Gainwell, and Will Shipley. To add context, the Philadelphia Eagles brought in 4 running backs last year on the active roster. I think they bring in 3 this season. Wide receiver, I have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Paris Campbell, Anaya Smith, Johnny Wilson, and John Ross. And honorable mention, Britton Covey. I don't have him listed right here. I have him listed on the special teams section of this. But I think they bring in 6 wide receivers who can potentially who will see the field. And the 7th will be Britton Covey, who's going to be the punt returner. The reason I have Britton Covey making this roster is because they have a lot of trust in him right now. That's what I think. I think that punt return spot is heavily relying on trust. And I think they have a lot of trust in Britton Covey. He would have to really fall off a cliff for them to lose trust in him in that regard. Because first things first, when it comes to punt return, above all else, before you think about making a play, you got to secure the ball first. So I think the Philadelphia Eagles bring in 6 wide receivers plus Britton Covey, which makes it 7. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Paris Campbell, Anaya Smith, Johnny Wilson, John Ross, Britton Covey. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to have a tough decision to make between Paris Campbell and John Ross. So I think they're going to end up bringing both of them. I think Anaya Smith and Johnny Wilson make this roster regardless because they drafted those players. And they want to continue to develop those players. Moving on to tight end, Dallas Goedert, C.J. Uzomah, Albert O. To add context, the Philadelphia Eagles brought in 5 wide receivers in 2023, and they brought in 4 tight ends in 2023. I think at tight end, they bring in 3 this time. Dallas Goedert, C.J. Uzomah, Albert O. I have Grant Calcaterra not making the roster and falling to the practice squad. That's my honest opinion. I think the reason C.J. Uzomah makes the roster is because he's the veteran, and you want a guy who knows what he's doing out there consistently. And Albert O, I just think he's the most physically intriguing player in the tight end room outside of Dallas Goedert. I think Albert O is the one they lean on, is the one they want to bring in. So I think they bring in 3 tight ends this season instead of 4. Just as a reminder, this is way too early. This is me just making a casual prediction off of some things that what we already know. But there's going to be a lot of changes. We still haven't. We only done OTAs and mandatory minicamp and rookie minicamp. We haven't even done training camp, and the preseason still has to come. So getting to the offensive line, last season the Philadelphia Eagles brought in 9 offensive linemen. I think they bring in 10 this go around. Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens. I have Tyler Steen winning the right guard starting spot, and then behind them I have Mekhi Becton as your tackle / guard. Matt Hennessy as your swing guard / center. Let me put that right there. Write that in there. I have Dylan McMahon as your pure center, Trevor Keegan as your guard, and Fred Johnson as a tackle. So you got 2 offensive linemen as backups who are versatile, and Mekhi Becton and Matt Hennessy. They're cross-training Mekhi Becton. I'm sure they're cross-training everybody. But Mekhi Becton, Matt Hennessy, Dylan McMahon, Trevor Keegan, Fred Johnson, they make the roster as well. I got the Philadelphia Eagles bringing in 10 offensive linemen this year rather than the 9 they did last year. They're deep at offensive line. Remind you, they brought in 4 running backs last year. I think they bring in 3 this year. They brought in 5 wide receivers last year. I think they bring in 7. They brought in 4 tight ends last year. I think they bring in 3. And the reason I leave some of those roster spots available because the Philadelphia Eagles have a ton of DBs that should make this roster. And I think it's just going to be a tough decision to make. And they drafted 2 DBs in the draft. They're loaded there. They're talented there. I think they're going to have a hard time letting those guys hit the practice squad. Now, moving on to the defensive line. This is where it gets tricky because, you have edge rushers and off-ball linebackers and DNs. It gets a little wonky. So I did this the best way I could. I just separated it by defensive line and linebackers. We're going to focus on the defensive line part, right? At D-line, I have Jalen Carter, DT, Jordan Davis, defensive tackle, Milton Williams, D tackle, Marlon Tuipulotu, D tackle. I have the Philadelphia Eagles bringing in 4 D tackles into the season. Now, on the edge / end, I have Bryce Huff as your defensive end / edge rusher. Josh Sweat as your defensive end / edge rusher. Brandon Graham as your more so prototypical defensive end. I have Nolan Smith making the roster as an edge. So essentially, I have 8 players making this roster from the defensive line. I have 8 players making this roster from the defensive line. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Marlon Tuipulotu. That's 4 defensive tackles. Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith. That's 4 edge rusher / DNs. Again, this is where it gets interesting, right? At linebacker, I have Devin White. I have Devin White as your middle linebacker. Zach Bond is one of your off-ball linebackers, who's also going to probably play inside a little bit. I have Nakobe Dean making his roster. I have Jeremiah Trotter Jr. making his roster, and then I throw in Jalen Hunt, who's a very unique player. He's a former safety turned edge rusher, but he has coverage ability. He has a lot of athleticism that he brought from being a safety, so he can be an off-ball linebacker / edge rusher. He's going to be a very unique player. I'm very curious to see how they use him. Zach Bond, he's a unique player as well. He's a guy who's capable of dropping back, but also capable of rushing the passer as well. So again, the whole linebacker, edge rusher, DN thing gets a little tricky. But I got the Philadelphia Eagles bringing in 5 linebackers onto this roster. Devin White, Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and Jalen Hunt. Some people may even consider Nolan Smith to be a linebacker, right, in that category. So, again, it's however you want to slice it. It just gets a little complicated. It just gets a little weird. But nonetheless, though, on the D-line, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Marlon Tuipulotu, Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith. Linebackers, Devin White, Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Jalen Hunt. Now, to add context, like we always do, right? To add context, when it comes to the D line, the Philadelphia Eagles brought in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They brought in, interesting. They brought in 10 prototypical defensive linemen, and they brought in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 linebackers, right? Again, it gets a little tricky with the edge rusher / offensive off-ball linebackers. It gets a little tricky, right? But basically, between the D-line and the linebackers, the Philadelphia Eagles last year brought in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 players in the front. D-line and linebacker. There's 16 players. How much do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 3 players down. Interesting. Again, this is way too early. This is me kind of just winging it here. But regardless, though, I had one of the reasons the D-line and linebacker count went down from 16 to 13 from 2023 to 2024 for me is the Eagles have so many DBs on this roster that probably should make it. And maybe all these guys don't make the roster. Maybe they don't. But they're so talented, it's hard for me to expect the Eagles to just let all these guys go. And especially if you're going to be in a lot of nickel formations, a lot of dime, this is a passing league. I feel like you're going to need as many DBs as you can get. And I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to struggle to let these guys hit the open market. So at defensive back, I have Darius Slay at corner, Quinyon Mitchell at corner, Avonte Maddox at nickel, Isaiah Rodgers at corner, Cooper Dejean, who's a corner, a nickel, and a safety. He's like your hybrid guy, right? Your Swiss Army knife. Then I have Keely Ringo making the roster. I have Zach McPherson making the roster. CJ Gardner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, and Mekhi Gardner. This could be OD. This could be OD in terms of the player count. But in total, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's 11 DBs I'm expecting them to bring in this year. Once again, this is a way too early prediction. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 DBs this year. Last year they brought in, let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Wow. So last year they brought in 11 DBs as well. Huh. Last year they brought in 11 DBs as well. So it's not a far cry. It's not a far cry at all. Zach is going to have to battle. Don't get it twisted. Zach is going to have to battle. Don't get it twisted. But I think the Philadelphia Eagles like him. And they're going to have to again, they have tough decisions to make at DB. They have tough decisions to make. And also remember, Zach McPherson, he came off that was the Achilles tear or ACL tear. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to try to get him to make this roster. That's what I think. Remember how we drafted him. I think he has some leeway here. By the way, if you're just joining the live stream, we're going to go over this list again. So don't fret. Don't ask where certain people are. I'm going to make sure we go through this list. Okay? I'm going to make sure we all see what's going on here. All right. And then special teams, Jake Elliott. I have Jake Elliott, Braden Mann at punter, Rick Lovato, long snapper. Give me 1 second. Make sure it's easy to see. All right. So special teams, Jake Elliott, Braden Mann, Rick Lovato as a long snapper, and Brenton Covey as your punt returner / wide receiver. So that's the seventh guy. In the wide receiver room. So we're going to start from the top. I know a lot of you guys are just hopping into the live stream. We're going to revisit everything. And once again, it's a way too early prediction. I don't want you guys jumping out the window here. I don't want you guys jumping out the window at all. And if you disagree, make your own. Make your own list. All right, let's get back to the top. So I feel like offense was the easiest part of this. Offense was super easy. Yeah, I feel like offense was super easy to do. Defense is where it got a little difficult. But just getting back to it. At quarterback, it goes without saying, Jalen Hurts, Kenny Pickett, Tanner McKee. I think that's easy money. At running back, Saquon Barkley, Kenny Gainwell, Will Shipley. Last year, the Philadelphia Eagles came into the season with 4 running backs. This year, I think they come into the season with 3. Wide receiver, I got the Philadelphia Eagles coming into the season with 6 wide receivers, 7 wide receivers if you include Brenton Covey. That's what I think. I think the Eagles come into the season with 6 wide receivers, 7 if you include Brent Covey. Last year, they came into the season with 5 total. This year, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Paris Campbell, Anaya Smith, Johnny Wilson, John Ross, and then Britton Covey as well. You're going to see Britton Covey's name on the back end. You're going to see Britton Covey's name on the back end. Reminder, the Philadelphia Eagles, they drafted 2 wide receivers. So they're automatically going to make this roster. That's what I think. I think that's exactly what happens. I think they automatically make this roster. So with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Anaya Smith, and Johnny Wilson being unlocked, that's 4 guys right there. Now, some may argue Paris Campbell and John Ross are the ones that are battling, and then one of those guys will get the final wide receiver spot. That's assuming they only bring in 5. I think they bring in 7. Because Kellen Moore uses a lot of wide receivers in his offensive packages. He uses a lot. He uses sometimes there's 4 on the field, 5 on the field. I don't think we're going to see too many of those, heavy tight end sets. I don't think we're going to see too many of those. We'll see, though. We'll see. Moving on to tight end. Dallas Goedert, C.J. Uzomah, Albert O. I think the Philadelphia Eagles bring in 3 tight ends. Last year, they brought in 4. I think Dallas Goedert obviously is the lock. C.J. Uzomah, he makes the roster because he's a veteran, and I think you need a guy like that on your roster in the event something goes down. Also, Albert O. He's a physical freak, big dude, athletic. I think the Philadelphia Eagles really, really like that player, and I think they would hate to see him make it to another roster from their practice squad. Moving on to offensive line. Last year, the Philadelphia Eagles brought in 9 offensive linemen total. Last year, they brought in 9 offensive linemen total. This year, they bring in 10. I think they bring in 10. Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, obviously, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen. I have Tyler Steen winning that right guard spot in the end. Then, on the back end, the backups, you have Mekhi Becton, who's gonna probably be first man up if Lane Johnson or Tyler Steen gets hurt. Then you have Matt Hennessy, who may be first man up if Landon Dickerson gets hurt. Then you have Dylan McMahon, who could be first man up if Cam Jurgens gets hurt, or maybe Matt Hennessy as well. I think Art, listen up. I think Mekhi Becton is first man up if Lane Johnson or Tyler Steen gets hurt. I think Matt Hennessy is first man up if Landon Dickerson or Cam Jurgens gets hurt. I think Fred Johnson is first man up if Mailata gets hurt. Then I think Dylan McMahon and Trevor Keegan, they're your rookies. They're your break glass if need be guys. But also, I could take it a step further. Follow me here. I could take it a step further, right? You can make an argument because Mekhi Becton has experience playing left tackle, right tackle, and now right guard. They're cross-training him for that, right? I can make an argument that if Lane Johnson gets hurt, or Jordan Mailata gets hurt, or Tyler Steen gets hurt, Mekhi Becton is first man up. So I think Mekhi Becton is first man up if Mailata gets hurt, Lane Johnson gets hurt, or Tyler Steen. Taking it a step further, if Cam Jurgens or Landon Dickerson gets hurt, I think Matt Hennessy is first man up. And then I think Dylan McMahon, Trevor Keegan, Fred Johnson, those are your, God forbid, if you got 2 offensive linemen out, then you're going to have to dig deep into, or maybe 3 offensive linemen out, then you're going to have to start to dig deep into Dylan McMahon, Trevor Keegan, and Fred Johnson. But I think that's the offensive line room. They bring in 10 players instead of 9. 2 of those players out of the 10, they drafted them. They're going to make this roster. They brought in Mekhi Becton and Matt Hennessy. I think they're going to make this roster. Fred Johnson is a player that they really, really like. So I think he makes the roster too because of him being a tackle. Moving on. Let's get to the defensive line and the linebackers. And this is where things get a little tricky. Because last year, the Philadelphia Eagles brought in, I think, 16 D linemen and linebackers combined. They brought in 16 defensive linemen and linebackers combined last year. This year, I think they bring in 13. Of those 13 D linemen and linebackers, I think the Eagles bring in Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Marlon Tuipulotu at defensive tackle. On the D-end/edge, I think they bring in Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith, who could potentially or maybe should be in that linebacker category. Again, that edge rusher, off-ball linebacker stuff gets a little tricky sometimes because it all depends on how they get used. At linebacker, the Eagles keep Devin White, Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and Jalix Hunt. The most eye-catching or eye-popping thing about this group in total is the versatility. You have Jalix Hunt, who's a former safety turned edge rusher, pseudo off-ball linebacker, who brings a ton of ball skills that he has and athleticism that he accumulated as a safety. He brings that to the edge rusher position with the additional size, right? With the coverage skills. He's going to be a guy that rushes the passer and potentially drops back. Zach Bond, another guy that's versatile. He can rush the passer. He can also drop back in coverage. He had a very strong final five game stretch for the Saints last year, displaying that skill set. Hence why he got signed by the Eagles. Nakobe Dean, off-ball linebacker, probably more so suited. Jeremiah Trotter and Devin White, I think those are your prototypical middle linebackers. So in total, you have 13 defensive linemen and linebackers combined compared to last year's 16. Like I said, I've cut down at certain positions because I think the Philadelphia Eagles are so loaded at defensive back. I think they're going to have a hard time letting all those guys go. So, moving on to the defensive backs, last year, to add context, the Philadelphia Eagles brought in 11 defensive backs to the active roster going into the season. They had 11. This year, I think they bring in 11 again. Darius Slay, obviously. Quinyon Mitchell. Avonte Maddox. Isaiah Rodgers. Cooper DeJean. Keely Ringo. Zach McPherson. CJ Gardner-Johnson. Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, Mekhi Gardner. Now, I know a lot of you guys are pushing back against Zach McPherson, right? But let's not forget last year, and again, it was last year, he was the backup nickel. Now, the Eagles added a lot of players, a lot of DBs to the room since then. So I could be way off with Zach McPherson, but I'm looking at it from the perspective of the Eagles drafted him. I think with him entering the final year of his career, I think they want to keep him on his roster as a final go. We'll see though. Like I said, this is a way too early prediction. And a lot of you guys are high on Tyler Hall, right? Tyler Hall is a player that can make this roster too. You know, I had to make some tough decisions here. I feel you. But we got to keep in mind the Philadelphia Eagles, they drafted a ton of DBs. They drafted two DBs in this draft class. They drafted 2 wide receivers. That I don't think we saw that coming in that value. So that, in my opinion, that changes things. Plus, you got a new OC, a new DC. We ultimately have no idea what their long-term plan is. I just think that Kellen Moore is going to want a boatload of wide receivers. I think Fangio was going to want these DBs on the roster because of the versatility, the athleticism, how well they're playing. These guys, wide receivers and DBs included, they're having such strong camps, such strong OTAs. They're forcing Kellen Moore, Nick Sirianni, and Vic Fangio to make tough decisions. That's what I think is going on right now. And I think, and I just think this is how it's going to turn out. But if I had to swap anybody in the DB room, it would probably be Zach McPherson. Zach McPherson was the toughest call for me. My man S. Blunt with the $4.99 donation. He says, thank you for sharing. Nothing personal if our opinions differ. Just for good convo, how to better our team. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is all fun. And it's way too, it's an early prediction, right? This is us just trying to get a sense for how our week 1 roster could potentially look, right? This is pretty much what that's about. And I appreciate S. Blunt for igniting the flame, making sure that we got this done here, right? S. Blunt is a loyal subscriber. And he always hit me up saying, hey, we doing that 53-man roster, right? We doing that 53, right? I was like, I got you. And we were supposed to do it yesterday. I had some things come up, and I had some other work to get done. And regardless, I wanted to make sure I double back and gave y'all something to hold on to for y'all Saturday. To set y'all afternoon right. It's nice out, man. It's nice down here in Texas. I heard the weather is great in Philly. Wherever you are, let me know what the weather is. I hope you guys are going through some great weather conditions right now. It's time for y'all to get outside. Time for y'all to get some nice drinks, some nice vibes, hear some good music. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to make sure I set y'all morning/afternoon off just right, giving you your Eagles fix, give you something to vibe out to. Maybe you getting ready to pop out and show motherfuckers, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to my man Kendrick. Maybe you ready to pop out and show him, We'll see. But moving on, special teams is obvious. Thank you again, S. Blunt, by the way, for donating. Special teams, Jake Elliott, Brandon Mann, Rick Lovato, and Britton Covey, who's the punt returner and wide receiver. But I don't think Britton Covey is going to see the field as a wide receiver at all. I think he's a punt returner, and that's it. I think the Eagles want to get Anaya Smith on the football field on offense. I think they want to get John Ross on the field if they can. You know what I mean? I just think this offense is going to be so different. This defense is going to be so different. I think Fangio wants his DBs and the versatility at linebacker. I think Kellen Moore wants those tight ends. Wants those wide receivers. Last year, 5 made the roster. Last year, 5 wide receivers made the roster. This year, I think 7 make the roster. Last year, 11 DBs made the roster. I think 11 once again make the roster. But there's more versatility and youth in the building now. Last year, 16 defensive linemen and linebackers combined made the roster. This year, I think 13 make the roster. I think we're going to see the Philadelphia Eagles in a lot of nickel, a lot of dime sets, a lot of big nickel, right? I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to use a lot of big nickel situations. As Blunt says, I think they want to send Covey to the practice squad, but they don't have a solid punt return man behind him that they trust yet. And that's why I think he makes this roster. Because punt returning, above all else, you got to secure that ball first. Before you think about making a play, before you're thinking about making somebody miss or breaking a tackle, you got to secure that ball first. And so far, Britton Covey has shown that he's capable of securing that ball fearlessly. By the way, you guys, make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you guys continue to stay engaged in what we're doing here. I appreciate the love, appreciate the support. We got 40 people tuned in on X. We got 70 people tuned in, or 68 people tuned in on YouTube. I appreciate you guys. Please smash that like button. That like button is currency. The like button is the lifeblood of the content creation game. So I appreciate you guys. If you hit that like button on the way in, hit it on the way out. It means a lot to me. It goes a long way. So, yeah, like I was saying, last year, the Eagles brought in 16 D linemen and linebackers combined. 16. I think this year they bring in 13. 13. Kyle Kokorski says, Tone, I think we need another edge rusher. Are you talking about signing one or just making sure we have another one added to the roster? Because as far as I'm concerned, on this active roster that I have here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edge rushers. If you want to add Brandon Graham to that equation, I think Brandon Graham is more of a traditional defensive end. But you know, this go around, they kind of merge those categories, defensive end and edge rusher. Typically, your edge rushers can rush the passer and drop back a little bit. But on this roster right now, I have 5 edge rushers if you include Jalen Hunt. If you really want to get freaky with it, we can include Zach Bond and make it 6, because Zach Bond has shown an ability to rush the passer when he was with the Saints. So, I mean, in theory, I have 6 pass rushers on this roster. In theory, right now, I have 6 in theory. But I understand your perspective, Kyle, because the positions kind of blend and they cross over. I get that. But this is the roster, Kyle. This is the roster. I understand you only trust Sweat, but Sweat didn't have a good season last year either. But I understand why you trust Sweat, because he's the one, he's probably the most physically gifted out of all of them. But this is the roster. And I don't think you're going to find too many edge rushers who are just sitting around at home. And I think it's going to be really difficult to trade for one, depending on what you may have to give up. And also, the Eagles want to get these young guys on the roster. They paid Bryce Huff. Brandon Graham is on his last leg. Nolan Smith has to start making an impact. He's a former first-round pick. He has to start making an impact. Josh Sweat, you're now the guy, right? Brandon Graham's the OG. Bryce Huff, they gave you $17 million. Jalen Hunt, young, versatile player. So it can get interesting. I think we got to look at the roster for what it is right now, even though Harry Roseman has shown that he's not afraid to make a move as you get closer to the season. But I think 13 defensive linemen / linebackers combined, I think 13 guys make the roster compared to 16 last season. And the D-backs, you know, they have so many bodies there. They have so many bodies there, man. I think they don't want to let any of those guys go. I don't think they want to let any of those guys go. Come here, buddy. Come here, look. All right. I think that's the hey, why you acting funny, man? This little son of a gun is always getting. Let me hide my chain because he always doing the most. This guy right here, man, he's teething like crazy. And all he wants to do is nibble. That's all he wants to do is just nibble on stuff. That's all he wants to do is just continue to nibble. Oh, come on, man. So, where are we? Yeah, man, there you have it, you guys. Tell me what you guys think. Matter of fact, what I want you guys to do me a favor, right? Do me a favor. Do me a favor, and I want you guys to grade this for me. Grade this for me. So I'm gonna go through it again with you guys, right? I'm gonna go through it again. Let's start from the top. Oh, come on, man. Hey, you guys. While you guys mull over this, right? While you mull over this, I'm gonna put him outside. Give me a second, all right? Give me 30 seconds. I'm gonna put him outside, y'all. 30 seconds. All right. All right. So yeah, before we get out of here, give me your way too early grades. So, like I said, quarterback, Jalen Hurts, Kenny Pickett, Tanner McKee. Running back, Saquon Barkley, Kenny Gainwell, Will Shipley. Wide receiver, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Paris Campbell, Aeneas Smith, Johnny Wilson, John Ross. Throw in Britton Covey in there as well. Tight end, Dallas Goedert, C.J. Uzoma, Albert O. Offensive line, Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, Mekhi Becton, Matt Hennessy, Dylan McMahon, Trevor Keegan, Fred Johnson. Defensive line and linebackers, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Marlon Tuipulotu, Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith, Devin White, Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and Jalix Hunt. Defensive backs, I have Darius Slay, Quinyon Mitchell, Avonte Maddox, Isaiah Rodgers, Cooper DeJean, Keely Ringo, Zach McPherson, who I struggled with, could easily be swiped out for Tyler Hall. Zach McPherson, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship, Sidney Brown, Mekhi Gardner. Special teams, Jake Elliott, Braden Mann, Rick Lovato, Britton Covey. It says here, as Blunt says, let's see what my man as Blunt wrote. Let's see. He said B plus QBRB. I agree. Wide receiver. I don't think Ross and Campbell make the team. So okay, Ross and Campbell. So you think one or the other? One or the other. Understood. I think that's reasonable. Again, I struggled with that. So, yeah, I can understand that mindset. It's probably more realistic they bring in 6 wide receivers rather than 7. I mean, they brought in 5 last year, but I think you bring up a good point, Blunt. Maybe there's a high chance that the 2 guys that are really battling are Campbell and Ross for that WR3 spot. Really, he says tight end. He got Grant C making the roster. He says he agrees with the offensive line. He says he thinks 5 D tackles make it. I got 4, but he said he thinks 5 make it. He says he agrees with the linebackers though. He thinks the cornerback is off by Zek and Brown. Oh, he said he thinks cornerback is off by Zek McPherson. Reasonable. I can understand that. And Sidney Brown may start the season on the PUP list. Very reasonable. You know what's so funny? When I was making this list, I completely forgot about Tyler Hall. For some reason, I overlooked his name on this roster for some reason. Fitness Warrior, give it up on Josh Jobe. Give it up. He's not ahead of Kelee Ringo. He's not ahead of Cooper Dejean. He's not ahead of Isaiah Rodgers, and obviously not ahead of Quinyon Mitchell. Give it up on Tyler. Give it up on Josh Jobe. Okay, Tyler Hall has a better chance of making this roster than Josh Jobe. Like Josh Jobe is he's no. They drafted 2 corners, and they had Isaiah Rodgers in the tuck, and Kelee Ringo they drafted last year. It's Josh Jobe is not making his roster. They're too loaded right there. He has not shown enough of anything for me to believe he can outgain or outplay Kelee Ringo or Isaiah Rodgers or Avonte Maddox or Cooper Dejean. So give that one up. So yeah, if I had to move or swap out any players, I would definitely swap out Zach McPherson for Tyler Hall. I would probably add another DT, like my man S. Blunt said, and that would probably be, if I had to think about who I would add, that might be Moro Ojomo. They drafted him, so I'll probably choose him. Fitness Roofer says we need another D end. See, this is where I disagree, because, like I said, that defensive end / edge rusher role is kind of blended, right? You got Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith. You can throw Jalen Hunt into that category as well, because he got drafted as an edge rusher, right? And if you really want to get freaky with it, you can throw Zach Bond, because he was a pass rusher. So if you want to look at it from the perspective of pass rushers rather than edge or D end, if you want to just look at it from the perspective of pass rushers, right? I think the Philadelphia Eagles have 6 pass rushers on this roster, on the D end or the edge or at linebacker. And that's Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith. That's 4. Zach Bond and Jalen Hunt, that's 6. That gives them versatility, guys that can rush the passer and also drop back in coverage if need be. On top of that, Nolan Smith has to prove he's a player now. You signed Bryce Huff. Josh Sweat is the young veteran. Brandon Graham is the OG in the building. You drafted Jalen Hunt in the 3rd round. Zach Bond, he has versatility. There are guys on this roster, especially guys they drafted, that have to start to show something. 2 guys that I'm going to call out right now that have to show something is Bryce Huff and Nolan Smith. Bryce Huff, because they paid him and they essentially moved on from Hassan Reddick for this player, and they drafted Nolan Smith, who in theory, they drafted because they saw a future beyond Hassan Reddick. So the 2 players who were in theory brought here to replace Hassan Reddick had to show something. They had to be productive players, because Hassan Reddick was your most productive defensive player. Nolan Smith and Bryce Huff, those are 2 guys I got my eyes on for sure. But look, that's pretty much there you have it, you guys. We're going to get out of here. I appreciate you guys so much for locking in on the content and being dope, the dopest that you guys have always been, man. You guys have been tremendous. Can't take it for granted. Please, please, please make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you guys stay locked in on the content. Make sure you are subscribed, especially if you're new to the show. I appreciate all the love. I appreciate all the hate, all the opinions, all the thoughts. I appreciate all of the pushback. All that stuff just makes it a much more entertaining show, right? Even if I go back and forth with you, right? Even if I don't agree with your opinion at all, right? It makes it a good show, because I need to be challenged all the time. I'm not always right. That's the reality. And I don't even think that I am most of the time. I think I'm wrong most of the time. But nonetheless, that's a whole different conversation. I appreciate you guys for being here. You guys are awesome. Again, please make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Shout out to my X family, all my people holding me down on Twitter. I appreciate you guys so much. We got 52 people holding it down on X. 69 people holding it down on YouTube. You guys have been tremendous. Hit the retweet button, hit the like button, share it, hit the like button. Subscribe to the show. You guys are dope. You guys are beautiful people. Like I said, man, focus on your mentals. Get your mind right. Get your body right. Get your spirit right. Get your emotions right. Get the finances right, okay? We all going through our own road of trials and tribulations, but just know you ain't the only one. And we in this together. I appreciate y'all and I love y'all. I'm your guy, your humble host, Tone DeShields II. You guys have been locked in on your dose of Chalk It Up Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge it to the game.